Welcome back, everyone, to Let's Talk Business. I am your host, Rick Jenkins. Appreciate you joining us. And up next is Rick Oppedisano. He is the president and CEO of Delta Bravo, and he is here. We're going to continue a conversation about artificial intelligence that we began having with Travis Seward with EVG Media just a minute ago. And Rick, how are you, pal?
Good. It's good to see you, Rick. Thanks for having me.
It is good to see you, and it's good to have you. Delta Bravo, really interesting company. Now, I've been familiar with you, and I've been familiar with Delta Bravo for quite some time now, mostly because of your involvement in the South Carolina Manufacturing Conference and Expo, which I was involved with for several years. And so that's how we kind of got to know each other and how I became familiar with Delta Bravo, which is an extremely impressive company. Before we get into Delta Bravo, let's talk about you. You've done it all, man.
Oh, well, I've been busy.
That's for certain. You have. Tell us about yourself a little.
A little background. From New York, upstate New York primarily. Moved down to Virginia for college, and then just progressively moved south because I just couldn't resist the weather and the opportunity. And so found myself in the Charlotte area, and then right over the border into the Fort Mill, Rock Hill area. And that took us into 2016, where we decided to start Delta Bravo. And so prior to that, I helped run a publicly traded company that had 26 subsidiaries in 24 countries. That was interesting. Prior to that, ran a couple of technology startups, helped with a couple of turnarounds, and just was able to build a good amount of experience and a good amount of perspective. And when the time came to look at something new, the way that things came together for Delta Bravo just couldn't have been any better. Right place, right time, right thing.
I hear you. And you said you have been in this general area since when?
Well, moved to the Charlotte area in 2000, so it's been a while. But okay. South Carolina really since 2013.
2013, okay. So we could probably talk to you for the entire segment about things that you have done, but I want to talk about Delta Bravo. So give us that somewhat brief elevator speech on what Delta Bravo does.
Yeah, so first of all, I love it.
I hope.
So what we do is we work with manufacturers, and what we do is we use AI, and we develop these things called what we call AI co-pilots. And an AI co-pilot takes all the data that is being processed in real time in a manufacturing operation, brings it all together, and uses AI to help an operator make a decision in real time that is the best possible decision for a production outcome. So when you step back and take a look at the big picture, we are in the business of restoring American leadership in manufacturing. That is the goal of this company. And that is something that's got a personal level of attachment for me. But when you step back and take a look at it, that's what we're doing. Manufacturers are a hotbed for data. They produce data from machines, from processes, from procedures, bringing it all together and helping people make better decisions faster. That's what we're in it for.
So, I know enough about manufacturing to know that they are constantly trying to streamline their organizations. Oh, yeah. They're constantly trying to save money. They're constantly trying to improve bottom line, of course, like we all are. But it's not always so simple with those guys when you have so many moving parts and so many things that are happening. But you guys can really help them with that through predictive analytics.
Right. So really, we tend to focus on a couple of areas that have the highest kind of barrier to entry as well as the highest value. Right. So the number one place we tend to focus is on quality. All right. So when you have a new core steel, for example, that makes 1,400 different product SKUs, how do you bring all that data together when those operators could be making any combination of those at any time to give them the information they need? So that when you think about that big picture on quality, think about the idea. You and I are older guys, right? So now we're old, right? And so when we were coming up, if we were working at a manufacturer, we'd get a 3-ring binder that thick full of specs. Got 1,400 specs. We're reading it, right? Mm-hmm. And we would, because that's how our generation learned. Now, the new generation that's coming in, they don't learn that way, right? If you give this new generation a 3-ring binder with specs that thick, they're going to look at this and say, geez, what even is this? Right. They want that information pre-populated. They want it pre-calculated. They want it on a screen, right? And they want to know what they need to know right now. And that's the difference. That's the difference between what we're doing versus like a dashboarding type of a situation, things like that. So like with the new core steel, for example, we're giving an operator real-time feedback saying, hey, when you make this decision right here, when you use this number, that'll maximize the quality and tensile strength of this particular product, and then minimize the steel scrap moving into the next. So you get this this increase in quality, and you have this decrease in waste, right? So you're improving operating margins, you're improving throughput, and you're achieving potentially sustainability goals of reducing waste and reducing the footprint that's associated with your manufacturing process.
AI is just the latest technology, and what a lot of us refer to as Industry 4.0. Right, and smart factories these days. Is AI is of course not going to be a passing fad. We know that, but is AI going to come and fade, or tell us about what that looks like? What's your crystal ball say?
Yeah, so we are just at the beginning, right? This is nascent stages, right? Yeah. This is when you think about the whole internet. This is back when someone said, "Oh my gosh, that email." So we are really early now. What I will tell you is that the world is being taken by storm by the Gen AI craze right now, and it's great. However, those models don't give you any sort of insight in terms of where they got the data from, how they've processed that data to give you the recommendation. So if you take a look at like a Gen AI scenario, they're going to have total confidence whether they're 100% right, 100% wrong, or anywhere in the middle. So I think that there are certain scenarios in business where if you start to use AI, you've got to use models that have a level of transparency. So for example, with us and Rolls-Royce, we were with Rolls-Royce and we put together a model that was a neural net model, very complex, very black box. And they said, hey, while this is great and while this is helpful, we need to understand why it's making the decisions that it's making. And when we stepped back and we redid that model to make it more transparent, not only was it more accurate, but they actually used the information from the model to make design changes to their engines, right? So there's a lot of value in AI, there's a lot of value in the data, but it's got to be delivered in a way that adds value, not just the shortcut of giving me what I want right now, right? Understood.
So in so many of the industries that are accessing AI in a variety of ways, I mean, we're using it in commercial construction, we're using it in architectural firms are using marketing, as Travis said earlier. There is usually a downside. There is some downside to using AI. Is there a downside in the capacity that you are using?
I don't think so. So in manufacturing, there's a few things going on right now in the world of manufacturing. The number one thing is workforce readiness. They can't get enough people to build enough things. The way that those people learn are different than the prior generations. There's a big gap between getting people in, training them quickly, making them valuable to the business quickly, and then not losing them. Right? So when we take a look at what AI is doing in manufacturing, we're giving people the ability to turn one person into three. Right? This is a lot different. This is an additive thing. And I think that business at large, you're going to have two kind of businesses in the future, right? You're going to have businesses that are people plus AI, or businesses that go out of business. And so I think that's kind of where it's at this point.
AI will maybe take some jobs, but create other jobs within the industry.
Yeah, I think the jobs that AI takes are probably the ones that were on their way out anyway. I mean, there's in every generation, there's another cycle of automation, right? There always is, everywhere, right? And it, are we still alive as a society? Well, debatable. But yeah, you follow me. I mean, the stuff that's going to go away is stuff that's probably okay that it went away.
Let's switch gears here for a second. Before I let you go, I'll get you out of here on this. I want to talk a little bit about your experience just with starting a business and running a business and creating a successful business. You've done a whole lot of that. Most of our our listeners and our viewers are executives like yourself. Any advice for those folks out there who may have a startup in their future?
Yeah, so first things first, this is a wonderful place to do business.
Yes,
this state, South Carolina, we came up when we started. It was myself, my next door neighbor, and we approached the state and said, what kind of programs are there available for folks like us? And we found wonderful programs like the South Carolina Research Authority, SCRA. We found the South Carolina Manufacturing Extension Partnership, South Carolina Department of Commerce. There's so much passion about supporting the manufacturing community here, about supporting growing businesses in South Carolina. Like I was saying, prior to this, I helped run a publicly traded company. I worked with 22, 24 different countries. I worked with, maybe 30, 40 states here in the U.S. the biggest compliment I could give to the state of South Carolina is it never feels like I'm working with anyone from the state. These are professionals that are absolutely aligned, thorough, and ultra competent. Right. So that would be the first piece of advice, and say, do it here. Right. And leverage the things around you. The other side of it too is think about something that you're passionate about that has a level of meaning where you can continue to be credible. So with this business, my background's in technology, right? I've been doing technology for 20, 30 years, right? But with this business, I really thought about it, and something that I've always wanted to do. So I grew up, when I was growing up, my father helped run the oldest functioning manufacturing arsenal in North America in upstate New York. This is like 70s, late 70s, early 80s, and I would see the impact that these plants would have on these small towns, right? Where you would have, and this is back, guys are coming out of Vietnam, still trying to figure out their way back into society. And you would see these places that would give these folks a place to go, where they could produce, where they could have a meaningful day, where they could feed their family, right? And so for me, I've always kind of associated that. I mean, that is the most uniquely American thing I could think of, right? Where you're taking all these people from all these different backgrounds and we are making something together. And so, obviously, in the 90s, early 2000s, a lot of that waned, right? And you would see these small towns just get affected, and there's nothing sadder than seeing that. And so, when I had the opportunity to do something new, I really thought that through. And I said, this is the area that I want to be in. Because I just feel that if we can restore leadership in this, if we can bring that feeling back to people where you can make stuff, you can produce together, this is when America is healthy, right? It's when people are busy, people are producing. And so going back to the original question, I just feel like, find something that you can attach yourself to, because it's a grind, and that grind is going to be awful. And it doesn't stop. It's just new stuff all the time. So if you're not attached to that thing, and if you don't love your team, right, be with people that you can really just sink that time into and have that relationship with. Love your team, love what you're doing, have that purpose. Don't just try to get into something because you think, hey, you know what? If I Uber this thing, right, or if I put if I do a Chat GPT integration to this, it's going to be a whole new thing. We're going to blow up. Now, do something that you find some level of purpose in.
Rick, good stuff.
Hey, always great to see you, Rick.
It's good to see you. Good to see you. Folks, don't go anywhere. We're going to be back here in another minute with Carlos Phillips. Carlos is the CEO and the president at the Greenville Chamber of Commerce. Be back in about 60.